We have had 2 days thinking through what are the challenges and what are the solutions for sustainable food security in Saudi Arabia. Today really is to think about what are the delivery challenges. And we are going to talk directly to some of the organisations that may be involved in the delivery of some of these solutions to understand how they might be involved, what are the challenges, what could we be doing differently. We have specialists from government, from the Giga projects, from corporations and startups, but the first session will be government leaders who will respond to the challenges and solutions posed by the chairs from the previous 2 days. I will invite to the stage Mr. William England, who is Senior Vice President, Saudi Agriculture, Livestock and Investment Company, Ali Al-Shaikhi, CEO of the National Fisheries Development Programme, Dr. Suliman Ali Al-Khateeb, Director General, Plant Resources, Saudi Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, and Dr. Majid Al-Khalaf, Acting Executive Director of Monitoring and Risk Assessment and Secretary General of the National Nutrition Committee. Will you please all come to the stage, or would you please be available online? Thank you. So we might go one by one through the people on the panel and just ask you to introduce your organisation and its role, and particularly its role in food security, perhaps starting with you, Dr. Suliman.
Thank you, Paul, and it's great really to be here and listen to all these thoughts, this thinking. And I came from Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, of course, and we are responsible about agriculture, environment and water, and this is a very huge sectors and an important sectors. But I will concern about agriculture. If we would like to start with a statement, I think we need to just know that our ministry have many strategies, and these strategies play together to drive our food system, our sustainability, our environmental conditions through and the water in a sustainable manner. So there are our national agricultural strategies, and I will talk about it a little bit maybe if it's, but this is what we are doing. And there are the national water strategy and environment national strategy, and all of them have goals, vision, and have pillars, work on it. And in the end, we have our national food security strategy. And to be honest with you, it has been tested. And when we test these, when COVID 2020 happened, so our food security, national food security, have been tested for the availability of the food in the kingdom, and it was built to be resilient for any crisis, and it has been successfully. Nobody here in Saudi Arabia felt that there are any lack of any food, nothing shelves that is empty of food. And we saw that this happened in a countries considered one of the best in the world from the G20. But our national strategies related to agriculture, water and environment and food security is worked. And I really will tried my best and to separate myself as a moderator or from being a governmental officer and not redirect them to my thought, but I need them to get some ideas. Maybe we will have these to be implemented or to improve our national strategies according to what the panelists and the scientists and the other official private sector also to deliver for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A statement from you, Ali Al-Shaikhi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will not repeat what Dr. Suliman, we are from the same organization, and he explained well what is the role of the MEWA and the leading role of MEWA in this aspect. But I will focus on Aquaculture and Fisheries Department, which has the National Fishery Strategy, and our role really to support the private sector. We are working with the private sector hand to hand, and luckily we are the enabler to the private sector who's delivering our objective. And we have a clear target, we have a clear mission that we need to achieve it through the private sector. Luckily, we are working with research, and we focus on the research last few years. I think we spend more than 350 million Saudi Riyal for research only with KAUST. Yeah, and the results start appearing, and those results will impact immediately to the private sector, especially there is the efficiency, the new species, and the system regulation. A lot of things we will come to achieve. The government now working, I think the new government working really faster than what's in the past, taking the lead. Now we are working with Dr. Suliman, our team in the ministry, to align the strategies of private sector with our strategy. And this is a milestone in the kingdom now, to make it in the same line, to increase the efficiency, to reduce the overlapping, and to make the output is very sufficient and very as needed. Major player we have from the government, the different entities, we work hand to hand to support and to enable the private sector to achieve their goals. As everybody knows, aquaculture is a promising sector in Saudi Arabia. It is not locally only. There is international collaboration, international bodies we are working with, and there is export always. And the beauty of aquaculture is there is a know-how worldwide, and there is unique environment which we have, and there is a high potential according to the research and the strategies which we are applying now. In coming soon future, it will be one of the highest what you call food sector growth in Saudi Arabia, and it will cover local demand and export as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. William England, perhaps you could give us a short introduction of your organisation and its role in national food security.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
It's a privilege to be a part of this food security sustainability workshop, so I'm very grateful. SALIC, the Saudi Arabian Agriculture and Livestock Investment Company, is entirely mandated around food security. We were established by Royal Decree in 2009. We are 100% owned by PIF. We are a for-profit organisation because that's another strong form of sustainability. But I repeat, our absolute mandate is to work alongside all other stakeholders to ensure that there is food security within the kingdom. We have an extremely clearly defined and aligned strategy. There was a mention previously about the NAS strategy of MEWA and the various food security councils. We are fully aligned across all of the stakeholders, which is absolutely critical. And I would just pass comment about the advent of coronavirus. This was an extremely unwelcomed, unexpected, but actually rather amazing test of our resilience for food security. SALIC played an important role within that period of time, and yet we've all learned from it. And I would reconfirm that nobody within the kingdom had any issue whatsoever with the availability of food during that very difficult period for a country that imports over 70% of its food and would feel quite exposed in a global pandemic. How does SALIC go about delivering food security? We have a global mandate. We have investments in Canada, in the Black Sea, in Australia, in South America, in India, in the United Kingdom, and indeed within SALIC.
William, you've just frozen. Okay. I think we've lost the connection to
phrase all the way to the plant.
Lost you there for a second. Continue on.
Do you have you back again?
We're back again.
Great. So we have a global and a domestic role. We also operate along the entire value chain, which means that we operate farms in both the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. So we fully understand food production. My own history is 30 years driving large-scale agribusinesses, running farming businesses. I am a farmer. So we operate from production all the way through processing, infrastructure, and delivery into the kingdom. And some of you may be aware that we are currently building a port in Yamba to receive global products, and we have internal investments that make sure we can get product directly onto the plate. Our two pillars of operation are investment, where we invest directly into organizations, ranging from 20% investment to 100%, but also we trade, because the world trades food, and we trade in multiple dimensions to make sure that we've always got access to areas of surplus and multiple geographic options. So I'm sorry about the breakup of the internet, but I hope that you got the general drift of what it is that SALIC does.
We certainly did, and thank you very much. And Dr. Majid Al-Khalaf, perhaps you could give us your introductory statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Yes, I would like to mention that the Saudi Food and Drug Authority playing the crucial and important role in food security. As you know, the food utilization is one of the main pillars of food security, which is nutrition, food safety, food waste, and other using of the pillars. So since the initiation of Saudi Food and Drug Authority in 2003 by royal decree, the main task of establishment of Saudi Food and Drug Authority is food safety. The other thing, in November 2018, the royal decree issued to initiate the National Nutrition Committee to be under the structure of the Saudi Food and Drug Authority, interesting in several tasks in nutrition, ensuring and issuing recommendations and scientific opinions, and doing research on nutrition, and ensuring nutritious lifestyle for the Saudi population. So a lot of roles been engaged in Saudi Food and Drug Authority, establishing laboratories to ensuring food safety, analyzing any imported food and exported food, and also produced in Saudi Arabia. Also doing monitoring programs in Saudi Arabia to ensure the safety and the quality of food products in Saudi Arabia. Also, we have a department for research and development doing several studies in regard to food safety, regulation, and also nutrition. We have other several departments for legislation to regulate and making standards, policies for food safety, nutrition, food labeling, and all of these stuff. Also, we have a scientific part, which is Executive Department of Monitoring and Risk Assessment, doing a scientific research to assess the safety of food in Saudi Arabia. So, Saudi Food and Drug Authority playing a major role, actually, in food security, in terms of food safety and nutrition. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So there is clearly already a lot of work and a lot of effort being put into sustainable food security in Saudi Arabia, which we've heard about just now, and also through the last few days of the summit. We've heard many presentations. But perhaps you could give us your opinion of where you think the gaps might be, where we need to make some improvements in our sustainable food security system. Perhaps you would like to start, Dr. Suliman.
Thank you, Paul. I think let me start with the pillars that we are working on in the Ministry of Environment and Water and Agriculture. We put 7 pillars that help us to fill the gaps in what have been practices now or in 2017, and what we are looking for in 2030, how we will see ourselves in 2030. So we put target for 2030, and this is a question coming from the private sector. What shall I do to invest on? So you need to look for our target in 2030. So you know that the gap is there in vegetable, that we are now producing 2.2 million tons of fruits, of vegetables, and we are looking for 4.2 tons in 2030, taking into consideration technologies, water scarcity also taken in consideration, and also the population growth. So one of them is the sustainable use of natural resources, and it's one of the first pillars of our national agricultural strategy. And because of this pillar, we stop growing the forages, and we go to the value-added crops to be much more secure instead of wasting all this amount of water to grow feeding for the animals. And we can bring it from outside. So now we study all these things. We looked for the opportunities. Let me give you an example. I will not be able to cover all our national agricultural strategy in 2 or 3 minutes, but I will give you an example. We looked for the southwest of Saudi Arabia, where the rainfall there is more than 200 mil annually. So water harvesting is possible there. When we study the area there, we discovered that there are more than 130,000 hectares available to be grown in these areas where the water is available, where water harvesting is there, and we are now working on it to be rehabilitated, reclaimed, and to put it in the production system. This will secure a part. This is equal to what we are planting now, growing now, around 700,000 hectares. This equal to 15 to 20% of our cultivated area in the kingdom. And what the benefit from there, you could grow twice a year there, because the weather is there, is much suitable for such plantation system. So this is just one example or 2 examples from our first pillar. There are contributions to food security, the second, marketing, agriculture, service development. Most of the agriculture or the farmers blaming maybe the government, why you are not helping us to grow or to market our products. So we tell them that, okay, grow as we are advise you. I will give you 2 examples. For date palm. For date palm, now we are saying, okay, we will conserve what have been achieved until now. We don't want to extend the area and the numbers of date palm. Please stop, because there are a huge amount of date palm here in Saudi Arabia. Okay, it's the same for olives. Olives, we have more than 16 billion trees of olives. So it's produced more than 40% of our need of olive oils. And it is a niche oil. It's not for all the people. But now what we are doing, okay, just stop expanding the olives, because we are looking for the sustainability. We are looking for your profit and your economic, and just go to grow something. We put it in our national agricultural strategy. And when we go to the sustainable rural development, we have launched in MEWA a program of rural development. It will launched in 2019 and until 2027. And it's targeting some specific crops. It's not for all the crops. So there are fruit crops, coffee, bees, livestock, fisheries. So we are targeting some small farmers to help them to maintain their practice in agriculture in a wise, profit manner, and to make them much sustainable and much profitable. The fifth pillar is the protection of plant animal health, and there are the agricultural productivity enhancement, and this is where technologies, research and development come, and really we are relying on it. And I think in this statements, I will close it, and this is the gap that we are looking for it. I can give the numbers for each products, what our target in 2030. So I just gave an example for vegetable, but there are for fruit, for poultry, for red meat, for all these have been tested, studied, analyzed, and we put target accordingly, taking in consideration sustainability and natural resources, technologies, population growth, our trade balance, our agriculture GDP, all these taking in consideration. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Suliman. Mr. England, do you have a view on where you think the gaps might be that need concentrated effort on over the next few years in the sustainable food security system?
If you allow, I'd prefer to replace the word gap with evolution, which I think is more of a positive spin. I think that SALIC very much sees itself as a facilitator as part of this evolution based on collaboration. And just let me take ourselves back a step. If you looked at where SALIC was when I joined the company in 2017, it was all about outbound investment. It was all about global investment in areas of surplus production to ultimately bring that product back into the kingdom. Part of our evolution has been really steered by the experience of COVID. And we find ourselves in a situation now where innovation, as always, comes when we need it, right? So we're now looking much more back at domestic production, which colleagues on the panel have already referenced. And for me, the gap, or the evolution, as I prefer to describe it, is about adoption of innovation to enhance domestic production. And let me give you an example. I have just returned from visiting our operation in Australia, which we were not able to visit for 2 years. Technology allowed us to be fully in communication and continue to run it. But there's nothing better than a physical site visit. And as an example, there are many areas of the world where we seek innovation that we can bring home. But Australia is a good example. Australia itself is largely a desert, and yet it's a massive exporter of food. And I was on our business, which is a very marginal wheat-producing farm that has a very low rainfall, similar to that which was described that exists in the southwest of our country. And I spent considerable time working with GRDC, which is the Grains and Research Development Council of Australia, on how to optimize our own production in Australia. But it is absolutely fascinating to see how much of that innovation in Australia we can bring home. So I think the evolution is seeking all innovation in the world, in this amazing world we live in that allows us to you see the work that KAUST do in terms of partial desalination of water and using saline-tolerant crops. Technology has raced towards the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and allows us to use seawater effectively. It allows us to use genetics, CRISPR technology. It allows us to look at alternative proteins, perhaps using bacteria to produce protein rather than just relying on animals. So you can use methane and bacteria to freeze dry bacteria and put it straight into fish feed as an alternative to the live capture element of fish feed. And we can go on and on and on. There is so much innovation in the world that we need to bring back into the kingdom as part of the evolution of increasing food security by increasing domestic food production.
Thank you. Dr. Majid, there has been a lot of talk over the last 2.5 days, and Mr. England spoke about it then, about the need for adopting innovation and changing behaviours. These, for any government, for any country, these are big challenges. In your view, what is the mechanisms that we need to put in place to ensure that we bring the people along with us and we don't just rush out ahead with all these innovations and there's no one behind adopting them?
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much for the previous speakers in the panel. Yes, we need to advance the innovation in Saudi Arabia. As mentioned Dr. Williams about the good example of Australia as a desert, and they succeeded in food production. In Saudi Arabia, we imported nearly 80% of our food. So what is the time to export the food? And also for the food security, sufficient amounts of food, innovation, technique of irrigation, distribution, digitalization in food distribution, transportation, packaging, and also making sure the safety and quality of food using innovation and digitalization. A lot of, or some challenges, a lot of succeeded stories actually in Saudi Arabia. We can't deny this. And the good example and beauty of what the pandemic hit the world. In the National Nutrition Committee, we have done one study, included 7,000 people in Saudi Arabia. We found the storage habits in Saudi Arabia didn't change during pandemic. And this is good, succeeded story that the food security not been affected in Saudi Arabia. This behind, after bless of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, behind this, a lots of efforts being done by several agencies and several ministries in Saudi Arabia to make sure that the food security is high and there is no scarcity in providing food. A lots of communications and a lots of lessons actually we learned from. Forming a lots of committees, 24/7, working all the days, discussing in specializations, people in for example, several food stocks, food items, working 24/7, good communication skills we learned from pandemic, assessing the safety quality in very quick manners. In Saudi Food and Drug Authority, we learned a lot, to be honest. Some bureaucratic decisions being done, we shortening them. I remember it took 2 days. When the pandemic, it took 1 hour. So it is very good actually example to some procedures we don't need them. To takes a long time, it doesn't make difference to make sure the safety and the quality of the food. So the research and development very, very important to advance and make sure advance the work to making sure the food security in Saudi Arabia. This is I would like to say. A lots of committees being formed in Saudi Arabia, for example, National Nutrition Committee for the studies, also the National Food Security, which is having a lots of tasks to do, but should be backed up with innovation and research. And this is the duty for universities like KAUST and other universities to work together side by side to collaborate to make sure and cover the 4 main pillars: food accessibility, availability, usability, and also the stability of the food security. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Ali, do you have a view? You've obviously got some very ambitious targets in aquaculture. How do you ensure that you have the skills in the industry that you'll need to have that expansion and to be able to adopt all these innovations?
Thank you for your question. It's a deep question. In fact, in Saudi Arabia, if you look to most of the university, you will not find a special college which is deliver what the sector need today. And this is one of the area we are working to fill this gap, but it's required time, of course. Luckily, we have what you call the private sector is leading from their side positively, developing their people and encourage them. And in fact, we have Saudi leaders now in the private sector to run the show of the aquaculture growth business in Saudi. We try to solve those gaps by creating new initiatives. The initiatives started a few years back. Now the result of those initiatives can be seen. Aquaculture sector in Saudi or the management in MEWA decided to elevate it as a high standard. Then we started to look to the best practice worldwide. Then we selected to be with a global alliance to be certified all the local producer with BAB. BAB is a best aquaculture practice. This decision elevates the standard in all companies. We link it with the subsidy. We link it with the local quality mark. It's called SAMAC. SAMAC stands for Saudi Arabia Mark Aquaculture Quality. Now all producers, they are entitled for subsidy. They should have that quality mark. This is we ensure the process. We ensure the quality, the safety of the food. From all aspects, we build the trust to the consumer by having that label in the production. And we link it with the subsidy. There's a support from government to those companies to fight in the market. Market is still, it's another problem. There is a huge debate between, which last few years, between the import dump quality, low quality to Saudi, and now really we have to thank SFDA. They work with us last few years. We raised the standard. There is a good specification. Now recently they announced, they notify all the WTO countries that all the imported aquaculture to Saudi Arabia, it should with this local standard with SAMAC. And this is now one of the milestones have been to protect the local producer. Biosecurity, it's one of the key elements to sustain our industry. Luckily, today we have Dr. Victoria. She is a pioneer of biosecurity in Saudi Arabia for the last 5 years. She developed the system, and now it is mandatory. Today, biosecurity in Saudi is taken as a benchmark worldwide. And in fact, now we are recently with FAO, they assigned the biosecurity local system to be regional, not only for Saudi. We work with the Gulf in recovery, and we have RAFO Commission from FAO, and all those neighbor countries applying, starting learning and applying the biosecurity, local biosecurity. And this is one of the achievements which we are proud of in Saudi Arabia, and we share it with our neighbor country to make their product equal what we are doing and to sustain the business, because we do believe the neighbor, if they are doing well, it will impact positively to us. But if they are doing lower than what we expect, it will affect us immediately. The research which we are doing currently with King Abdulaziz University and King Abdullah University and with King Faisal also, all those research now is supporting the need of the industry. We identified the gaps. There's initiatives solved by research. It's the research type here is applied research. And the beauty of our research is connected with the all private sector. Now, part of the research done in the private sector, the result will be continuous from their side. And last week, we had one of the amazing deliverables from those research. Next week, we have another one, and it will be continuous. And this information now, it's ready for the private sector to proceed further, to grow further. And the support of government is continuous to the private sector to achieve their main goal and their main target, which come to the main objective, as you said, high ambition target. Today, we achieve almost 115,000 tons of the target, but still the way to achieve 600. One of the tasks which KAUST is doing now is carrying capacity for the Red Sea and identification of the new location for investment and developing the feasibility study for investors. One of our main targets in the future to provide all the support necessary for the investors by providing feasibility study, location, environmental impact study, and license, to be ready to give into the investors to support to achieve the target. Again, there is good potential for aquaculture in Saudi Arabia, and we do believe that the support from SALIC now, as Mr. William mentioned, it will play a significant role. ADF is supporting the industry positively, and there is a clear focus on aquaculture to elevate it as what we expect. Last thing which I would like to mention, that we are supporting the companies to promote their product outside as well. G2G agreement with few countries allow our product to be there. Now, recently we have major production to China, to Korea, Russia, and Europe, America. Most of the country now you'll find the Saudi product there shining really with a good quality.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. I think we've run out of time, sadly, because I had many more questions, but will you please join me in thanking our panel from the government for their presentations. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our second panel for this session is from the Giga projects. And our panelists, if they could come up to the stage, are Raymond Moule, who is the Senior Manager of Agricultural Development in NEOM, Dr. Maram Abadi, who is a Senior Special Projects Manager with the Red Sea Development Company, and Mr. Ahmed Daoud, who is the Director of Innovation Futures and Acting Executive Director of Innovation for the Royal Commission for Al-Ula. So again, we might just start off with some statements at the beginning from each of you about the role of your organisation in sustainable food security in Saudi Arabia. Give you a couple of minutes each, and then we'll have some questions. And we might start with you, Dr. Maram, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Paul. Actually, it's a pleasure to speak about the Risk Development Company and Amala as a project. And for those who's not familiar, I'm just going to go briefly through the Risk Development Company and Amala as a vision. It's a luxury and ultra-luxury tourism development project. And actually, it's the most ambitious tourism project on the planet. And the foundation of our project is the environmental sustainability and going beyond that. And we think what will attract our visitor to choose our location is our coral reef, our dugong, our nesting seabird, our turtle, our nature environment. That's really the foundation of our project. We think about regenerative tourism. Most of the development and regulatory system around the world aim to minimize the negative impact of the environment, which lead to a huge decay in biodiversity. This is one of the reasons. But in the Risk Development Company and Amala, Actually, rather than minimizing the negative impact of the development, we are trying to improve the environment because of the development. Actually, this is our core business model. More people were coming over time to our location as our coral reef getting better and better. Our population of turtle will increase. As biodiversity increases, will be more and more reason for people to choose our location as a destination. I'm just going to outline some of our ambitious goal. Our commitment to 30% net positive of increasing in biodiversity across our special economic zone, and our commitment to carbon neutrality. We already committed. Now we are building a 100% renewable power system in our site with 100% solar and 100% battery backup, which gives the largest battery system on the planet, and it will finish this year. But that's not enough because we are a tourism business. So the people were flying from all over the world to our location. So we did some estimation of how much carbon we're going to produce, which is about 2 to 2.5 million metric tons per year. So we're trying to find the ways to capture that carbon. One of the ways will be the sustainable food production, both agriculture and aquaculture. And we are planning to grow a third of our food on site because, of course, because of the carbon footprint. And it's not only that we're not importing a third of our food, but actually growing the food itself, that photosynthesis will help us to capture that carbon. Plus, we are planning to grow a large-scale microalgae farm. Because the microalgae is very efficient in CO2 sequestration. Plus, the final product will be like a high-value food and very nutritious, and it could be used like a feedstock or as an input for the inland recirculated aquaculture system, and the discharge from aquaculture system could be the input for the agriculture. So we're thinking about the circular economy, that the discharge from one system could be the input for the other system in a systematic way. And we believe that the only way to achieve our goal is through science and technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's incredibly interesting. Thank you. Richard, perhaps you could, sorry, Raymond, perhaps we could give you, sorry, it's getting late in the day for me. Perhaps you could give us a 2-minute presentation of your organisation and its role in sustainable food security.
Okay, thank you, Paul. It certainly is getting a bit late in the day. You're the hardest working person I've seen in the whole of the conference, I think. So yes, I'm here representing NEOM. As most people are aware, NEOM is a new area which is being developed in northwest Saudi Arabia, and it's very futuristic in its objectives and its targets. The overall objective is to develop a completely new modern city, and the ecosystems that support that in a way that can be adapted and adopted for use to address the issues being caused by climate change around the world, and to take the lessons learned and to be able to disseminate those to other areas of the world which are also facing similar issues in the future. So in that regard, NEOM is trying to become a leader in developing new technologies to address climate change and with regards to agriculture, to address issues in production in challenging climates. And the way that it's going to do that, particularly for the food production, is very much in line with the overall food security requirements here in Saudi Arabia. So it's going to address issues in making sure that we have enough food to eat as far as possible, but it's also going to do it in a sustainable way as much as it can locally. So in that regard, there is a selection of certain crops that we think we can grow sustainably, and a heavy focus on producing those crops in a very resourceful, high-tech way to get the maximum output from the minimum input. And I'm at that just to go back to comments made this morning by Professor Matthew McCabe about linking production and water use, NEOM is perhaps in a unique situation where we can actually link the planned production that we're going to have with the available water supply, because the available water supply within the NEOM area is all going to be desalinated. The types of activities that we're going to be undertaking in terms of production are very much focused on high-tech greenhouse solutions, but we are also interested in alternative solutions, and it's been very encouraging for me to hear talk today and yesterday about alternative systems such as the cooling roof, retractable roof systems, which offer a new option to look at production of high-value crops. And all of the production is going to be making maximum use of the available water, so as much as possible is going to be hydroponic production using recirculating water systems. We also have a strong focus, like all of our colleagues here today, upon research and technology. We want to develop and use the resources which have been illustrated to us over the past couple of days through KAUST and the other research organizations and the various ministries and organizations which have been here participating, and to utilize those and make the most, maximize the benefit of those, and to look at ways that we can develop those going forwards so that if there is potential for them to be used elsewhere in the world, we are in a leading position to be able to spread that information and contribute to broader food security around the world, and also to cut back on water usage and issues relating to availability of land. A further activity that we have is development of novel foods. So NEOM is actually going to be an area where there will be no livestock production, and our novel foods activity is going to be focused around development of alternative meats using various modern technologies, and also alternative dairy. We also have a modern aquaculture fisheries production program planned, and that will be implemented shortly. Just as a final point, I'd just like to throw out there for all of you to think about. One of my colleagues in NEOM recently challenged me to think about ways that we could actually meet our own food needs in NEOM without planting any crops in the soil. And I think that's an interesting challenge. Very ambitious, but an interesting challenge.
Thank you so much. And Ahmed, my new friend, perhaps you could give us a 2-minute, 3-minute introduction. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you very much for chairing this panel today. Been a delightful conference so far, so happy to contribute from the perspective of the Royal Commission for Al-Ula. 2 tough, very acts to follow, but I'll do my best. So at the Royal Commission for Al-Ula, our mandate is twofold. One is hyper-local, so rather than focus on the kingdom at large, our focus is specifically on Al-Ula as an entire ecosystem. But also kind of from the hyper-local focus, a focus on the land, the people, the indigenous heritage, ancient or recent, as well as the ecosystems there from a sustainable perspective, from an agricultural perspective, but also from a socioeconomic perspective. We also, on the flip side of that, have a mandate towards presenting Al-Ula as the masterpiece of the world, per the vision of His Royal Highness. And we do believe that the natural assets, the historical and heritage assets we have there really are up to that standard, that it really is upon us to be able to deliver on that vision. And it's a very vision that's very much within reach, that we could realize with the right effort and the right innovation. That being said, to fulfill our mandate, we're a very highly integrated entity, meaning that from the person that determines, how we manage speeding tickets in Al-Ula to the person that determines, what the aviation standards need to be, are all RCU employees. So we have a very unique position in terms of when we approach challenges such as sustainability, whether it's in our economic infrastructure or from our food security standpoint, to be able to look at solving challenges across the entire value chain. Meaning that because we're highly integrated, we can look at the impact of our agriculture practices across everything that we do, which puts us in a unique position to be able to think about full value chain solutions. So when we look at, for example, our luxury developments in hospitality, and a lot of people say Al-Ula is fairly expensive to visit right now, and that's true. And for the meanwhile, that's okay, because we want to be able to fund Al-Ula in a way that is sustainable, that allows us to really develop thoughtful, carefully designed ecosystems, and to be able to create these value chains between our hospitality sector, where the focus is very much how do we bring and curate menus and items that are farm to table, and also how do we invest in the local agriculture ecosystems to develop this, what we're calling a series of oases. So our heritage and our history, our founding master plan is a journey through time. And if we look back into our history in Al-Ula, while we do not have access to water to desalinate, but even before there were these technologies around desalination, there was food security in Al-Ula. There was a thriving, agricultural ecosystem there. There were civilizations that before the modernized era, where supply chains were extremely efficient, was self-sustainable from a food standpoint. So we need only to look to our past to find a lot of the solutions that we seek. Because even if you go into the ancient caves and tombs in Al-Ula, you find inscriptions of cattle having been there. So there were domesticated livestock in farming area. Of course, changes in climate have made that slightly untenable, but there are still areas that we could regenerate, and these are some of the things that we're thinking about, where in higher altitude parts of Al-Ula, the climate is still year-round, quite moderate, and we are potentially able to regenerate some of these areas to be able to diversify the food crops that we're able to grow year-round. Aside from that, while we do not have access to the sea to desalinate, we have a decent amount of aquifer water, but that requires that we treat it, because it's shallow, in a very responsible manner, because we can easily pollute it if we continue non-sustainable agriculture practices, which are unfortunately prevalent right now. Right. But at the same time, we do have access to water, and we can increase our output so long as we do it while also decreasing our water usage, which is quite possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you for your introductory statements. You've obviously all got very ambitious objectives and a big role in project management. What are the partnerships you're seeking to help you deliver some of these objectives? What sort of partnerships are you looking for, particularly around sustainable food security? What are those partnerships that you're thinking of? Perhaps, Maram, with your experience first.
Okay. Actually, to achieve our commitment to a 30% biodiversity, in the marine part of that, we are planning to establish a large no-take marine area along the Red Sea coast, from the north boundary of Prince Mohammed bin Salman Reserve until the northern boundary of the Special Economic Zone, and that will significantly increase the biomass, especially for the big fishes. And this is in partnership with the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Reserve and the National Fishery Development Program and the National Center of Wildlife. So we are committed to find a way to develop an inland aquaculture in Kingdom. Time that with the agriculture, like our collaboration with the Red Sea Farm, which is one of the innovation technology that developed here in KAUST. So we are looking for an approach to achieve our ambitious goals.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ahmed?
Yeah, the partnerships are really one of the core areas that we focus on at RCU. We have entire departments, actually, within my same sector as innovation. Partnerships is a sister entity, and partnerships is really one of the initial approaches that we look at when we come to solving problems, because it's about being able to really slingshot the identification of solutions. So, you know, conveniently enough, the most active partnership we have in the agriculture sector specifically is with KAUST. So we have a couple of concurrent streams running currently with KAUST, with Professor Wing and the CDA to explore how we can solve some of the key problems we have at Al-Ula as it pertains to agriculture. Again, you know, I'm not an agriculture expert. I'm an innovation management practitioner, innovation management expert. And I think that's fine, because we need to solve our agriculture challenges in a multidisciplinary way. Because when we look at the synergies between different areas of innovation, whether it's IoT, sensor systems, fiber optics, material science, these are all elements of research and components of research that feed into how do we identify novel, modern, interesting, highly effective solutions that have high efficacy in addressing the problems that we have. Because incremental solutions are, of course, valuable, but it's really transformational solutions that bring in you know, perspectives or thought leadership from other disciplines that are really going to help us solve these problems. So partnerships with multidisciplinary research institutions is really, in my opinion, the way to be able to address some of these sometimes intractable challenges if you perceive them only or try to solve them from only one approach. But when we have partnerships with entities such as KAUST, it allows us to kind of tap into a branching network of experts in their fields to be able to bring solutions to bear that can help us solve these problems. One example is we're working with one of the professors here at KAUST to identify solutions for the red palm weevil, which is an infestation that affects palm trees and can lead to the destruction of, you know, anywhere between 17 to 30% of palm crops. So when you think about the amount of water waste that you're ending up with when you have to burn down or cut down, you know, 17% of your palm trees that have been consuming water for years, that's a huge amount of waste. So being able to identify solutions that solve that. And we're using sensor technology, fiber optics, to be able to actually identify these infestations early on and be able to address them at the root cause.
Thank you. And Ray, your perspective on partnerships, and what sort of partnerships in particular are you looking for?
Okay, so similar to my colleagues on the panel, you know, we have within NEOM, we have a strong relationship with KAUST. We have a number of activities already underway. Collaborations on research, on development, but we also have or are looking at developing further networks worldwide. Any leading innovator in the sector on a worldwide basis, we're interested in talking to them. So Wageningen University in the Netherlands is a key partner that we're in regular contact with. And we're just implementing a pilot demonstration project, developing 12 hectares of very high-tech modern greenhouses at 2 different locations within NEOM, one at sea level and a further one at 1,000 meters elevation, whereby we will be undertaking trials with our Dutch partners in how those technologies work best and how they can be modified for the different zones in which they're established. But NEOM's approach to agriculture and agriculture, well, broader food production generally, is that it wants to bring in partners not only from Saudi Arabia, but worldwide, who are innovators, who want to invest into technological solutions, new approaches, new methodologies that will help to mitigate the effects of climate change and the likely squeeze on food supplies that are going to come with the increasing populations towards 2050. So as a new organization and new area of development, we are keen and we have specific targets to look to partner with any organizations worldwide who have interesting technology, and there are incentives to encourage these organizations to come into the NEOM area, to set up their production bases, carry out their research within the NEOM area, and to work with NEOM to develop these solutions, which can then be disseminated. Also, the production base in NEOM, which has specific targets in terms of the amount of food that's to be produced within the area. That's also, the aim there is not that NEOM would carry that out itself, but that will be done with partner organizations who invest into the NEOM area in a JV partnership, PPP type arrangement with NEOM, with the NEOM authority.
Very interesting and a fantastic opportunity for all three. They are going to be very high-profile projects, all of them. I imagine they're going to generate a lot of pride within Saudi Arabia. So what opportunities do you see for, I guess, using that visibility to drive home some of the messages that maybe we've heard over the last few days around food waste, diet, being efficient with water, being sensible around which crops we grow? Do you think there is an opportunity for your projects to play a role in starting to reinforce some of those messages, perhaps starting with you, Ahmed?
Yeah, definitely. I think for us being an aspirational destination, we really want to position ourselves from a brand perspective, and I think we're well on our way to do that at the intersection of heritage and luxury. So whether we're looking at high net worth individuals, aspirational individuals globally, or people who are at the forefront of research and intellectual thought leadership, this is a destination that appeals to people of that ilk. So we really want this destination to be accessible to everyone, but at the same time be aspirational and be a place where aspirational thought leadership is developed. So leveraging that positioning, that brand equity, if we really make a bold statement in how we operate, how we treat our resources, how we treat food, how we treat the land, how we treat water, as being at the forefront of sustainable practices, we're in a position to be able to act as advocates and champions of sustainable practices in food and water consumption by positioning these practices as part of an aspirational experience. So when you come to Alola, you experience a delightful cultural heritage, tourist experience that is very much grounded in sustainability. So what you eat is from the land, is sourced from local farms. The materials used at restaurants, we're looking at transitioning those to be sustainable plastics, sustainable materials, and associating the brand equity of a luxury destination with sustainable practices. So to further propagate the perception globally, in the kingdom, but also globally, that these two things are one and the same. If you aspire to live a comfortable life going forward, as a society, as a species, we need to make sure that we also are taking care of our planet, and we can embody that in how we operate and how we treat our guests and how we expect our guests and our visitors to treat our land as well.
Thank you very much. Ray, your thoughts?
Yeah, at NEOM, it's slightly different in that we don't have the cultural heritage to build from, but the option with NEOM is that it's very modern and futuristic, and I'm sure that many of you will have seen the developments that NEOM is beginning to roll out, Oxygen, the industrial area, partly located on land, partly located on the sea, Trojena, the recent introduction of the resort in the mountains, all very modern and futuristic, and so the way that we're going to be stimulating people's thoughts around the work that we're doing is that it will be very futuristic and very innovative based on technology, technological solutions, but also, we have a large element built into our overall plan for visitors to be heavily involved into seeing how food is produced, see the modern technologies that are being employed, educational programs, informational programs, and also we have a mandate to spread the word not only within KSA but also across the broader world itself, wherever there is this climate change issue coming to the fore. And so, we are looking to work with any institutions worldwide who offer or who suffer or who are carrying out research into these key areas. KAUST is a great example locally, but we're just talking now with universities in Arizona, which have similar climate, provide research and information on issues, on solutions in those areas as well.
Thank you. And Maram, Red Sea Development Company?
Yes. Actually, it's an economic as well. So we are trying to set an example for the entire world for the regenerative tourism. So we are willing to adapt any innovation technology that can help us to reach our goals. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any impediments for you that you believe at the moment are there any impediments other than losing your microphone to achieving sustainable food security for your developments? Do you think there's anything in the way at the moment where you would prefer that there were mechanisms to help remove or reduce some of those impediments? Ray, starting with you perhaps first.
That's a very good question, and I think the issues that NEOM face are certainly that it's a big challenge. It's a big development. It's a big challenge. It's going to take time. There are, I think, some expectations that things are done very quickly and that we begin to get results very quickly. And I wouldn't want people to be disillusioned by the fact that our targets are to be producing results really by 2030, so that there's a long-term vision in all of this. There are significant challenges in terms of the fact that we are limited, although NEOM is a huge area, the limitations that we face internally in producing food and using the resources are quite strict. And so 95% of the whole area is to remain untouched as a natural park. So all of the developments, including whatever we do in agriculture, has to remain within the remaining 5%. That means that our footprint for agricultural production is, the opportunity for agricultural production is very limited, which goes back to the comment that I threw out there at the beginning. One of my colleagues threw up to me, can we produce our food requirements within NEOM without planting any crops in the soil? And there is, to a certain extent, an element of thinking that we should be focused very heavily upon indoor farming solutions, controlled environment solutions that are built into or very close to the line, the city that's to be developed within NEOM, and that we will have very few crops planted outside of that area in the line. Now that is, at the moment, that's extremely challenging in terms of technology. Unless we're all going to eat lettuce for the rest of our lives, that is currently going to be very difficult. So that's an area of focus that we have to look at carefully. But we are also, NEOM is also heavily focused upon circular economy and trying to make sure that we reduce all the food waste, which is a significant problem here in Saudi Arabia and across the GCC generally. As much as some of our panelists have said over the last 2 or 3 days, as much as 50% of the food that we produce is actually wasted. It's not consumed. If we could cut that back and reduce that number, that would offer huge savings in the amount of water and bring great benefit. So within NEOM, we're trying to address that, cut back on the food waste. Any waste material that is developed, it's recirculated back into the system, it's composted, and we can use it again in producing new crops.
Thank you. Maram, from your perspective, any impediments for you and your organization?
Actually, like we're thinking about the technology who's like compatible with our area, like we have the land and we have the sun. So like growing the microalgae production farm. So we're looking for something compatible to our land. And we're looking for a circular economy, as I mentioned before, that the discharge from one system could be the input for another system in a systematic way. And we're planning now to have a way for a sustainable food production strategy and framework, as well as for the waste. So yeah, we are working on that.
Thank you. And Ahmed, any impediments from your perspective?
How much time do you have? I think the reality is, if we are to be honest, the impediments far outweigh and I think that's why we're here, right? Because the impediments far outweigh the solutions currently at hand. If we had enough solutions to outweigh the impediments, this wouldn't be as important an event to attend. There's a lot of impediments that we could speak about that we have in Al-Ula. A lot of these are common across the board, but the climate is very hot. It makes it a big challenge, and I think that's something that's very obvious. Supply chains for getting the right tools and resources, the right infrastructure into place to Al-Ula is difficult, because a lot of supply chains aren't established there, because until recently not much was happening there. But what I'd like to really focus on is the cultural impediments. And I think a lot of times we, especially in academic settings, we talk about the solutions that are available, the technologies, the innovation, and there's a lot of effort being done in that place. But really changing hearts and minds is the bigger challenge, behavioral change. And this is in 3 layers from where I see it, right? There's the global behavioral changes towards when you have a luxury destination that's not going to serve foie gras, where how do you build a luxury destination, dining experiences, F&B being a key element of the tourist experience, where you don't have an option for a steak on the menu. Currently, we have restaurants that have steak. Would we realistically be able to deviate from that, knowing that that is a non-sustainable menu item in a place like Al-Ula, at least right now? Would we realistically be able to make that decision without really hurting our bottom line, without really hurting our ability to succeed at our core mission? So, is the global mindset shifting quickly enough for us to be able to really build in fully sustainable practices boldly, with confidence that this would not undermine our ability to deliver on our mandate? That is a challenging question that we need to be asking ourselves honestly, because otherwise there's a disconnect between our aspirations and our operational realities, and we need to figure out how are these trends shifting, be able to track and monitor these shifts globally, and adapt in real time or even ahead of them, but not in complete disconnect from them. When electric cars came about, the Prius was never considered an aspirational vehicle outside really small circles. We're seeing some of that shift now, but over a decade later. So there are some of these cultural, behavioral realities that we need to really understand. At the local level, we spoke about this slightly yesterday. you know, in a light-hearted manner around, you know, will people eat a tofu kabsa or an algae kabsa, right? There's a local, regional, you know, affinity towards meat that is considered celebratory and aspirational. There's that association with some non-sustainable food practices that we need to deviate from. And also, lastly, the third layer is us as an organization. So RCU is a great place to work if you're someone who really enjoys kind of pushing the boundaries, being at the forefront of what you do, and I think the same applies for the other Giga projects. They're aspirational places to work. One of the things people love about working at RCU is when you're at our campus, there's 9 hours of buffet meals a day, right? So, so there's, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner are each 3-hour buffets, and that's part of our organizational culture. People expect that on campus. So how do we change these practices within the people building these destinations as well? Because we can't in earnest be able to apply these solutions if we don't embody them. So yes, quite a lot of impediments, but I think the biggest ones and the ones that receive the least attention are the cultural ones at all of these 3 layers.
Okay. Well, look, thank you to all 3 speakers. Will you please give them a round of applause to thank them for their contribution? We certainly learnt a lot about the potential opportunities for partnerships and where they see the impediments and difficulties. So I think the invitation is open for people to come and talk to you after this session if you're interested in engaging with these amazing projects. So thank you again. I will just finish off this session by explaining what happens next. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ahmed. So we have slightly changed the timing of the day. We're going to break now for lunch. We're going to be back here at 1:30. So we're going to have a shorter lunch. We're going to have no afternoon break and try and finish by 4. Okay, so a lot of people have to catch planes out. So it is our intention to finish by 4 today. So please go and enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you back here at 1:30 for the next session. We will then be looking at some of the corporations and some startups and a similar sort of panel discussion with those groups. And then we will finish up with a declaration, what we think is a declaration of what we've learned from the past 3 days, and then finalise the session. So I'll see you back here at 1:30 and enjoy your lunch.